Hi you guys, today I want to show you how to make these unbelievably pillowy soft gluten-free rolls. They are pull apart just like what we remember. They're so soft, they're easy to make, and you can make them into a variety of shapes to suit your own needs. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make them. Okay, we start by making a tangzhong, and I've made this before. I'll leave links for the videos that I made it in just to refresh your memory or so you can see how it's made in other videos. But this is basically just a flour, water slash milk mixture that's kind of like it makes a thick paste. And what it does is it gelatinizes the starches in the flour to allow them to hold on to more liquid in the recipe, and therefore it makes the dough softer, and it also makes it last longer, or the bread softer and makes the bread last longer. And it really does work even for gluten-free baking, not just for gluten-filled baking. So we start by mixing this on about medium heat, and you'll see it's starting to thicken up now, and we continue to whisk it until it forms like a pretty thick paste. And this all takes just a couple of minutes. And there's our paste. So we'll set this aside to cool slightly while we get our other ingredients together. So in my bowl, I have my bread flour blend, which is the recipe for which is on my website, always linked below. And I'm adding to that some dry milk powder along with sugar, psyllium husks, instant yeast, and salt. And we'll whisk this to combine it just before it goes on the mixer. People always ask me if you can make my recipes, my doughs, without a stand mixer. And I've honestly never tried it myself, but if you don't have a stand mixer, first of all, they are worth the investment because I've had this one for like, I don't know, 30, 35 years. And I'm adding butter to this, softened butter and milk right now. But also they last for such a long time, these mixers do. But if you don't have a stand mixer, you can try to use a handheld mixer with if they have the dough attachments. And it might take a little bit longer to get it going, but it should work. I would not suggest mixing this stuff by hand unless you want to get a really, really good workout. Now I'm adding 1 egg, and then I'm going to stop the mixer and add in the tangzhong that's cooled slightly. It's still a little warm, and that's okay because it'll just get the yeast activated a little quicker. So we get that in there and start the mixer on to medium high. Let it go for about 5 minutes. And when it's done, we will cover it and let it rise in a warm, draft-free area until it's about doubled in size. And then leave the cover on and just put it right in the fridge overnight. And this is basically the same thing I do for almost all of my doughs. So if you made any of my recipes before, it's nothing new. So taking the dough out of the fridge, still very cold, throw a good amount of flour. You can see how much flour is on my bench right now. That's a good amount of flour. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to add too much flour to any of my doughs, and I get it. That's the normal thing with gluten-filled baking, or some other gluten-free bloggers might tell you not to add too much, but my recipes that I created, they can take it, and they can also take the kneading. So don't be afraid to really knead this dough and add extra flour as needed. I always keep a little bowl of extra bread flour blend, or if I'm making something else, cookies or cakes, whatever, pastries, I'll use the other all-purpose flour. But I'm telling you, go ahead and add extra flour as needed. And don't be afraid to really knead this dough. It can take it. Maybe other people say be very gentle with gluten-free doughs, but not these doughs. This is almost the same kneading technique as you would do if you were using regular gluten-filled dough. Now, regular gluten-filled dough would tell you probably not to add too much extra flour, but in this case, these recipes have been formulated to handle that extra flour. And what happens is a lot of people come to me and say either their dough is too sticky, they had a hard time shaping it, or they, when they bake the bread, it has very large holes in it, and that's because they didn't knead it enough. So now I'm going to weigh the entire dough so I know how to divide it, and the whole dough weighs about 32.4 ounces. So I am separating this into 2-ounce pieces, and that'll give me 16 rolls. You can also separate it into 3-ounce pieces, 4-ounce pieces. Just be your own chef and do whatever you size roll you want. And also, of course, like almost all of my bread doughs as well, you don't have to use all of this at once. You can bake half of it and put the rest in the fridge for a couple of days. Now, it does have an egg, so it can't stay in there for more than like 3 to 4 days. So to shape these, I'm going to add a little more flour to a section of my counter here and then fold the each piece over onto itself. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can see what I'm doing, making it into a round shape and pinching it on the bottom. And then you don't want flour on the side where you roll it into a round ball because you need that friction. You need it to kind of stick to the surface. And you'll see it is like kind of sticking to the surface. So I just take my bench scraper, which is like one of my favorite tools ever, and just lift it up and put it over to the side, and I'll shape the rest of them. So when I'm shaping these, I'm cupping my hand around them, and I'm leaving the outside of my hand, the palm where my pinky is, on the surface, and then just like going around, still leaving my hand on the surface into like a backwards C. And that's it. They're very easy to roll and shape. And if they stick to the surface a little bit, just use a bench scraper and pull them up. They're really easy to make, and once you get the hang of it, it's kind of relaxing to shape all these rolls. So now I'm just taking 8 of them just to show you, and I'm putting them in a round. This is actually an 8-inch cake pan, but you can also use a square pan. They will come out more square because they will kind of mold and rise into the shape the pan is. But this is what I'm using right now. You can also use like a 9 by 13 rectangular and put all 16 rolls in there. So now I'm covering with plastic wrap, and I'm going to let this proof in a warm place for about 30 minutes or so. They won't completely double in size, but they'll be noticeably larger. And they are very delicate, so I'm going to brush them very gently with melted butter. But I have to be very careful because I don't want to deflate them at all. And we'll bake these in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes, but it will depend on the size of your rolls. If you go with larger rolls, they may take a little longer to bake. But you're looking for golden brown, and when you touch them lightly, they'll spring back. And I'll take the rest of the melted butter, now that they're out of the oven, and brush that on the baked rolls. And then what I like to do, you don't have to do this, but I also, while they're still really warm, I cover them with a towel, and that just kind of keeps a crust from forming so they remain really soft. And look at these rolls, you guys. They are pull apart. They're so soft and squishy, and they're perfect as sliders in this size. And like I said, you can make them into hamburger and hot dog buns, a little larger. I know that I have hamburger and hot dog buns already on my site, and those are absolutely wonderful. Those, however, are more like a sweet type Hawaiian style roll, whereas these are less sweet, less enriched, so they're just light and pillowy and perfect. And I hope you enjoy.